Hey everyone, it's Monday. Welcome back to another FogCutter Live. I'm Mike Curtis here with Preston James, legendary option trader and founder of Trader's Edge Network, where we've been teaching investors to trade for themselves since 2003. So, Preston, we got another fun one locked and loaded for today. You ready to do this?
Yeah, not a dull moment. Not a dull moment. We do have a shortened week, just to remind everyone.
Right.
Thursday, there's no trading, and we do a lot in options. And you'll notice that in weeks that there's one less day of trading, the premiums aren't as big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes when you're looking across, especially with this conflict in the news with Israel and Iran, usually, options just across the board, you can really tell that there's more juice, but not this particular week.
Yeah, definitely. And we could start there with some of that news, the geopolitical conflict. So of course, we feel for anyone impacted by that. We hate seeing lives lost, all that. And we want to talk, obviously that dragged on the markets on Friday, right? Some of that news broke Thursday night.
It scared the
Friday
hell out
was,
of it. Scared
yeah,
the hell out of it.
it
Yeah.
spooks things, right? And we talk about this. We've mentioned it before on these fog cutters. Again, we want to help steer you through some of the noise and the chaos out there. And the market hates uncertainty. So when something like this bubbles up, at first, it just creates that uncertainty. How long is this going to last? There's so many questions, right? How many countries are going to be impacted? What's going to happen, a week from now, a month from now? And rightfully so, it can really spook the market. But then here we wake up this morning, now we're Monday, some of that shock has kind of worn off and we see the markets really responding strongly. I mean, the NASDAQ right now up over 1.5%. So the market's just digested some of that news and it's reacting strongly. Preston, what else do you see on that front?
I just remember leaving the office on Friday and saw we have that little readout
Yeah.
anyway. It's on top of an old Jack Daniel whiskey barrel, an authentic one, by the way, but we don't even know what's in there. But anyway, the market was down, and it showed that recovery intraday, right, on
Right.
Friday, and then ended just back down on the down. So you go on the weekend like, oh my gosh, what, and sometimes you need a weekend just for the break and just to
Right.
see how things are digested. But you found that really interesting chart, Mike, and I'm excited for the folks to see it.
Yeah, let's throw that up on the screen. So I dove in, I did some research just a little bit yesterday, and I believe it was JP Morgan that had analyzed about 40 or 50 of these geopolitical events. So again, we know it can be devastating to people impacted by this, local businesses, but the question I had in my brain was, how much of the impact will be felt and how long will that impact the markets, right? That's the question every investor is usually working through when some uncertainty pops up. And I thought this was super interesting. So what you can see there, the first bar chart, the first two bars there, 3 months after the conflict, usually the market has underperformed just kind of a standard normal market environment. But then those two middle bars are at the 6-month mark. And what you can see is after a geopolitical event or just regular humdrum, nothing going on, the performance is practically the exact same. Okay, so equities, the way the markets are 6 months after something like what we're dealing with right now, what we saw spook the market on Friday, 6 months later, there's really no difference. The market is performing after these geopolitical events the exact same rate as when there's nothing going on. And then again, those last two bars on this graphic here show the 12-month mark. And again, really no difference. So the reason I wanted to share this and we wanted to share this with everyone was, again, we try to help you carve through some of the noise and the chaos. So even though Friday can bring uncertainty, I mean, I don't know about you, Preston, but I was checking the news a lot more frequently than I normally do over the weekend. Just what's the latest? Are there more ballistic missiles flying? Is
Right.
Israel doing something? It just you can't help but be human and feel for people. You see an apartment building hit by a ballistic missile. I mean, it just, you can't help but get pulled into that and feel some of that uncertainty. So we try to bring actual data to our investment decisions. We try to bring actual analysis to help steer us through some of these times. And what I loved about this was, even though you can't help but see the news and the headlines and the pictures and feel horrible, the truth is, based on 40 or 50 different events like what we're seeing right now, if there is a dip, usually that's a buying opportunity. So what we saw on Friday, even though we're quickly, it looks like we're erasing that pretty much all today, maybe plus some, those can be buying opportunities. So in future situations like these, or as we continue to see, this situation play out, hopefully this brings just a little bit of clarity to what historically on average the market tends to do after events like these.
Yeah, Mike, that's great info. I would just add on top of it that aside from all this geopolitical, everything weighed in together, just standing on the shoulders of the research done by Bill O'Neill, the Investor Business Daily founder. He went back since World War II, probably the ultimate geopolitical conflict, but we've averaged a correction once a year. A market correction, and that's defined by a 10% pullback in the major indices. Right now, that'd be the S&P 500 / NASDAQ. And we're the market already dealt and had its 1 year correction. In fact, we're fresh out of that. In fact, I think we're about 1 or 2% back from when this correction started, from the high point before. Yeah, right there. So when you lay that over, here we have a geopolitical event, but we're also freshly recovering from our once a year correction. So, this geopolitical event could have happened, 2 months ago in April. That would have kind of just happened during a normal market correction anyway. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not that surprised that we're this quickly recovered from the scare on Friday. And maybe it takes another week or two and some reverberations. But as far as we're concerned, from what we see, but leaning on history, it is go time for stocks.
Right.
And I just want to add just one more thing to this. I perk up. Yes, the market, most stocks were down on Friday, but I like to have my eyes open on companies that maybe had a little extra scare, some extra news on top of it. And I think both Visa and MasterCard right here are very strong new money press candidates. And anyway, maybe if you're tuned into this, I'm very likely going to be trading a money press like on Visa, and you guys you're knowing about this in the FogCutter, maybe even before my WoW insiders. But the scare was, oh, hey, Visa and MasterCard, people might use cryptocurrency more or something. And like Visa and MasterCard don't have their fingers, in that too. I mean, they're the leaders of fintech. And so anyway, they got scared an extra amount on Friday on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Looks like they're just hanging out their 50-day moving average. There's only one Visa, by the way, and they're big for a reason. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good insight. And, it's common to see money flowing. Friday we saw money flowing into gold, right? Kind of a safe haven,
right,
in terms of conflict. And then today we're seeing money leaving gold, right? It's down 1% or something today. And to your point, Preston, money is coming back into stocks where, money is finding what they think is a better potential rate of returns. Yeah, seeing some of that money flow right back into stocks today, looking for opportunities, like you said, is super powerful. And then just to wrap up kind of some discussion on the broad markets, what I'm really watching on the S&P is our last swing high, or our last relative high, was just last week when the S&P hit about 6060. So that was on June 11th. So if we clear that level, which we're getting close to, we're about 22 points away or so on the S&P as of right now. That shows us our uptrend is resuming.
Right.
We're clearing that last swing high. We had a couple days where the market took a breather. We go clear that. Technically, from just a technical analysis standpoint, the S&P 500 would be resuming its uptrend. Looks like, based on the energy and momentum of today, that's probably pretty likely. And then, like you said, Preston, I just want to point out again, we're only 2% away from an all-time high. So just for fun, flash back to some of those days in April when the market was dropping off. Preston, you and I and Crypto Kyle, we were in Las Vegas for a kind of a business conference, and we were in the middle of that, right? Like, we were watching some of those panic days, and it just can't help but rattle most investors. And, you know, within 2 months' time, we've practically wiped all that out. So again, we like to lean on the data. Preston talks about it a lot. Once a year, we have these corrections. On average, they're about 14 weeks. And true to form, this one has performed almost to the T on average, on par with what we usually see.
Exactly. And why we care about it is because it takes about 3 out of 4 stocks. The market, how it cycles, takes 3 out of 4 stocks with it. And one other little thing, Mike, that I really like about correction, I mean, you like it or hate it, or what, just the fact is it happens. So we can either get comfortable with that and lean on it, and that's actually makes things a little less stressful, rather than trying to find, here I got into a call option, and there it goes against me again. Well, if you're doing that in the middle of if you're buying a call option or buying stock in a correction, I mean, you can have like the best motivation tapes, or you could be repeating Winston Churchill, I will never, ever give up. I will never, ever give up. The best speech in history. And you could be saying that and having your mantra and just feeling like you're getting picked on. I can't believe it. Well, why don't you if you start to trade a little bit more with reality and with market cycles, and you'll never do this listening to your friends or the ones close to you, because the market's always looking forward. And if they're talking about the economy, and if we're going to go in recession, and can you believe this or that, and not aware of the market cycles, and you're sitting there saying, like in April, Mike, when we were the day before our freaking Phoenix event, we got a follow-through day. We don't have time to go into what the follow-through day is here, but if you would have just trumpeted it, everyone close to you and those that you care most about, and you're saying, I'm buying calls, I'm buying some leaps, the coast is clear. All they're looking at is pretty much death and destruction of the market.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing. Oh, and let me get back to that. What my point was, is when we go through these market corrections, new leaders often appear coming out of market corrections, and they're oftentimes names that no one's heard of before. And one that's happening right now that's a recent IPO it's called Circle, and the ticker symbol is CRCL. And I really like this new IPO pattern, but it's coming out leading, and I'm watching every day. I watched it this morning. I pulled up an option chain. They don't have them yet, but I'm predicting any day or hour, there's going to be weekly options available on CRCL. And what is it? It's a fintech company. It's about stable coins. And you could go in and actually see the exact paragraph of the description, what they do. But this one, look at this. It's gapped up to a new high here on Monday. But so they have options. I'm waiting for the weekly options, because there's going to be some really killer strategies we can do. But you could look around and say, Circle? Who's ever heard of Circle? Circle? Oh, that's a weird name. And then 3 years later, it's like, oh yeah, circle this, circle that, circle that. You don't know, you have some circle. It's always going to be new at some point. And market corrections cough these up. So just a word to the wise, you're going to see new leaders coming out of corrections, and the smart trader becomes comfortable with these new names.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. So a couple things to watch for this week. Tuesday, we have our retail sales. Of course, that can be a gauge for just consumer spending, strength of the economy. So that one's usually pretty closely watched. That's one of our bigger economic announcements, events that comes out. Wednesday is really the biggie, which is our Fed interest rate decision. And they announced that during market hours towards the end of the trading day. So we're always keeping an eye on that. At this point, you can check the futures markets on how they're predicting if these rates will change. Right now, it's just showing they're probably going to be held steady, no cut, nothing like that. But it's always, they added 2 words here in this sentence from 6 weeks ago when they had the last meeting. Is that a little less likely to cut rates in the future or more likely to cut rates in the future? So again, just to build off of kind of what Preston was talking about, the market is always forward looking. And with these interest rate discussions, meetings, announcements, it's no different. It's looking out at what the likelihood is of a future rate cut. Does that look more likely sooner, less likely later? And that's really what the market reacts to. And then, of course, Thursday, the Juneteenth holiday, where the markets will be closed. So anything else?
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think that Thursday closure makes Friday almost like a catch-up day.
Right.
Maybe we see more volume on Friday.
Definitely.
A lot of pen up. I mean, that's interesting to have a holiday on a Thursday and then a full day on Friday.
Right.
So, and just a couple things too. I mean, Trump's been leaning on the Fed chairman. They got to stay separate, right? But doing the name calling and stuff, because obviously Trump wants rates lowered, and he's got his own interesting way of persuasion. Let's just say that. And then something funny too, Mike. Right before we started the FogCutter here on Monday, on the above the fold top of the Yahoo Finance site, seeing all this bounce in the market, their headline was, "Well, Wall Street really doesn't believe in going higher right now." It's just something stupid. I mean, look, the media's got it right. That's their job, right? It's just so funny. Didn't we see End of America? Wasn't it remember it was like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, Sell America.
Sell America was the headline. I mean, goodness gracious. Oh, and very light on earnings this week.
Right.
To me, the most interesting company announcing is Accenture, which will be Friday morning. That probably was a Thursday earnings, but since Thursday's a no market day, so Friday before the open, ticker symbol ACN. That's we're not predicting what it'll announce. I'm just saying I will be very interested how the crowd will respond, especially in the first hour to 90 minutes on Friday morning on ACN.
Yeah,
as you can see that extra licking during this last correction. That's what corrections do. This was a wicked one. It really sent ACN reeling. So here they are hanging out right now. I'll be very interested if we get a surprise factor set up on ACN come Friday.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a question from our mailbag I want to get to in a second. But Preston, before we do that, I want to talk some money press real quickly. As we're in this market environment, like you said, we're fresh out of the correction. We've got an uptrend. We're covering ground. Money is loving stocks right now, right? It's just been flowing back since April 22nd. You were talking about the follow through day. It's time to start getting back involved. When
my hand hurts, dude. I was slamming the desk in here. You know it. Sometimes you'll hear a rocket. And there he goes again. And I have the messier office of the thing, but man, I had a sore freaking fist from doing so many slams.
Yeah.
And I have this. This came in from one of our members, and he's like, you could maybe slam that. He gave me a wood thing to slam it on, like I'm the judge and jury. But anyway, we've got all kinds of stuff here at the land office.
Yeah, and at that time, the market, all the headlines were just saying, "Oh, it's over, it's over."
Oh yeah, this
and
is it.
You were saying, "Hey, it's time to start buying again. It's time to start buying again." And that was 800 points ago on the S&P 500. 800 points ago. So, anyway, in these conditions, with your money press, because Friday you were making some adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Fua here in our office, she's starting to trade. We were talking through some of these money press adjustments. So, Preston, when you're in this market environment where we kind of have the bullish, tailwinds.
I know where you're going. This is a great question. You haven't even answered it. This is key.
But we have a little bit of a pullback on a Friday, right? So maybe a few of the money press trades didn't hit profitability last week. But how are you adjusting those? Because usually we sell our weekly put right at the money. So if the stock's trading at 100, we want to sell the 100 strike price put. That brings in a ton of time value, usually the most time value.
It's a sweet
but
spot.
You were doing something a little different on Friday with pretty much most of your money press trades, right?
Yeah. And basically anticipating a bounce. Again, just leaning on the power underneath. You could call it the quiet verdict. The quiet verdict going on is stocks are being accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
And that means 3 out of 4 stocks go with that. So I trade my money presses during times like this with more of a bullish bent. So in a nutshell, this could mean stocks at 102, 103. You come up on a Friday and you're looking to sell next Friday's options. A stock at 102, 103. Doing it a little more aggressive is selling the 105 put.
Right.
So not at the money, but slightly in the money. That's even more premium, and it's warranted because of the market cycle that we're in.
Yep.
That's what helps make that decision.
Yeah, and I was walking through at least one of these with Fu on Friday and said, okay, so you're buying this one back, had a little loss, but I'm like, look at what we're bringing in by selling that slightly in the money. I'm like, if the stock bounces, again, we don't know exactly what it's going to do, but if that stock can bounce, like we think there's a high likelihood of it doing, you can be back to profitability. You cover any loss from last week, and now you're actually overall back in the green looking at those 2 weeks. So, yeah, by adjusting that with a little more of a bullish edge can help you cover a bad week plus some, just like that.
Yeah, I don't know why I have a mafia bosses phrase going through. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Oh, something sounded weird. But it's a beautiful thing. Is that how the mafia, is that how they say it? It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
No doubt. All right. So before we answer this question from one of our clients here, Preston, on Friday, you also did something fun. It was our first, or I guess it was 2 Fridays ago, was it now, when you announced our 250 club, profit club winner?
Our first one ever in history.
First one
because
ever.
we started it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just introduced for all of our WOW insiders to help people gauge their progress, to gauge how they're doing, how they're coming along. We built some milestones, and placing your first live trade is one. And then we did a $250 club. So at some point along the way, you've realized $250 in profit. Doesn't have to all be on one trade. It could be a couple trades, whatever it might be. And we did a drawing. We're going to do this monthly to, we tell people, hey, take that money out, go buy a nice dinner, a memorable dinner on the market.
Get the bone-in steak. I mean, get
absolutely. Do something fun. You don't have to, of course, but that's what we recommend. So our winner was a $250 gift card where we're going to buy you a nice dinner to our winner. So it was Mike C. from Twinsburg, Ohio. So, Mike, congrats. You're our first ever
Mike, I hope you enjoy all the
profit.
love. We keep repeating your name left and right. And it's because we're still like gathering. We're like, and we were talking before, Mike. It's like, so yeah, it's a 250 club, and it's like, and then what he wins is a gift card. So we're like, is that Ruth's Chris? You know, what if they don't have a Ruth's Chris club? Or is it food related? Is it a Visa card? Is it freaking Amazon? So we don't know. But all we know is Mike is getting love like crazy, and you better love it. Suck it up. Mike C. from Twinsburg, Ohio. He's the man.
Yep. In a couple weeks, we'll do our July drawing. So if you're in that $250 profit club, you're in there. Your name stays in the mix for any of our active insiders. So lots of fun there. And then finally, Preston.
Well, Mike, we're hearing a lot of fun stories come in.
Oh, it's so fun.
It's so great. We're getting pictures. We're getting pictures at dinner. We got someone's teenage daughter like trying oysters for the first time, and you could see that she wasn't sure about it. The picture says 1,000 words. We're having a blast with this.
Yeah. So if you're not a WoW insider, if you want to go check what that's about, insidermembership.com. You can go check that out. Insidermembership.com. You can check that out. So, all right, to our Monday mailbag. This was a question from one of our clients, Preston, so I'll hit you with it. They said, my long calls are in a good profit. I think this even came from our small account mastery series, where Preston opens up a dollar account. We trade it for 10 weeks. Preston, I don't want to, butter you up too much, but aren't you up about 15%? And we're only about 3 weeks in.
Today it's 22.
So we got a nice pop. I didn't know how much that Friday
all
sell
of them
off
are popped.
So over 20% in 3 weeks, tons of fun. So a couple of those are these long calls. So the question, my long calls are in a good profit. Should I just close them and take these profits or let them ride? What say
the answer is the lawyer answer, and that is it depends. But I will answer for right now. And I will say categorically, in my opinion, from all my experience, and you mentored 500 of our Traders Edge people, Mike, in your earlier history with us. But I will throw down and say the biggest number one trap for someone trading is the word boredom. It's easy, and that can mean weird moods. You wake up on a Monday, you're like, man, I'm up, and I've got nothing else to do. I think I'm going to sell out.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than buying a call option for 12, selling it at 18, and 3 months later, it's at 47.
Right.
Or a year later, it's 129. And you look back, you're like, I think I was just bored, but I sold. So very important. What market cycle are we in? We are in go time for stocks. I'm not in a hurry to sell anything right now. And sometimes it's so tempting because these profits really right now, they're on paper. They're not real until you sell them.
Totally.
But they're in a good way. There's no reason to sell these stocks. And Mike, I mean, my number one thing that keeps me with a bullish trade is if it's not making 30-day lows. And really, that could be like an hour long. It doesn't have to be an hour, but I don't know that we have visuals to point this out. Why don't we do this? Why don't we pin that? And in our next FogCutter live, we kind of do the 30-day low, and then everything else around it will be the second helpings, but it will be a featured 30-day low FogCutter because it really is that big of a deal. And I've probably heard more feedback over the years, like, oh my gosh, that 30-day low. When basically, in a nutshell, what it will do is keep you with a bullish position far longer than I would almost say anyone listening to this. I'm looking you in the eye right now because you think you're going to sell out and say, well, it looks good. on the chart that I see so far, it just feels, pardon me, it feels right to me. And then the other thing, I might be bored, not have anything to do. So you have to figure out something to do. So sometimes you mess with your trades. So
Yeah.
I will just say this, it will keep you with your bullish positions far longer than you normally would. And it also gets you out and captures most of the move. And this is going many, many months past this trade and looking back. How should have you acted? Because in the here and now, it's so difficult. There's so many voices, and Yahoo Finance says, no, this isn't real. This rally isn't real. And then 3 weeks ago, they would have said, sell America. What did it say, Mike? Sell America?
Sell America.
Sell America. And I'm bored, so I'm going to sell. No, 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 no. You need this in your life. You need to tune in next freaking Monday, and you need the 30-day low in your life. That's what I'm going to say, Mike.
No, that's some good parting wisdom. And I saw, like you said, I mentored over 500 traders and investors one-on-one, helping them learn about options, helping them learn these strategies. And it's one of the sad realities as an amateur investor and trader, they usually take their profits too soon.
Yeah.
And then they're riding the bad trades too long. They just get paralyzed and stunned, and they see the chart breaking down, they see support failing, and all these different things that should be warning signs to get out, close it. They'll ride that longer than they should. And hopefully some of you at home are nodding your head. You can identify this and avoid it next time. And then they get a little bit of a gain and they want to close it. They want to take that profit. And again, there's really no reason to, except the stock's up and you're showing some green, and it feels good to be right. It feels good to take some profits. So
and you're bored. You got time on your hands.
and you're bored. Yeah. So yeah, I identify that, start working through it. It's a common one. I've done it. I'm sure Preston's done it before too, but it's just the emotions and psychology of trading can get the best.
And Mike, let's give it some justice, because again, we could do that. It would take like a half hour. It's really simple, but I want to dedicate time to it. We got to do it next Monday.
Yeah, let's do it. I love it. Okay. Well, this has been a great one. Thanks, Preston. Hopefully this helps everyone get their week started on a little bit more insightful, prepared way as you attack the markets and your trading and investing. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks, Preston. Like always, good stuff.
You bet. And when I do peace, and that's not a loser, that's peace and love. That's what that is. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Love it. You bet.